I'm interested in what we talked about earlier on, the role of the security consultant in today's world. So take me through why would someone hire someone like you?
We have responsibility to the industry, that's first and foremost. And a good consultant is someone who's disruptive to a business. And I mean that with all due respect, you know, because a lot of the times we find that we work with organisations that just make decisions by committee and don't have an outside influence. So a consultant really needs to be someone who can come in and give them some fact, some basis on what risks they'll be working with, and to disrupt that thought process so that they can move forward and make some sound decisions.
One of the problems I find as you go around the industry, there's a lot of X's out there, ex-police, ex-military, ex-everything. That doesn't necessarily make them good at security. How do we determine who's a good security consultant?
It's based upon the knowledge. I think it's the subject matter expertise. It's continuously evolving, and good consultants are the people that keep up to speed with what's going on. You know, leadership in thought processes, in different thinking. People that can actually come in and challenge you on a day-to-day basis on what your business actually is doing in respects to security. Not just say, yes, we're going to put technology in for technology's sake. It's someone who can come in and make an impact that is positive for the business and that is constructive in the sense that you don't lose the capability of running your business on a day-to-day event, but you also got to understand the factual elements behind why you're doing things in respects to risk. A great security consultant, just to add to that, is someone who understands the element of risk, understand what it means, and understand that the real nature of risk is about people. It's about people's behaviours. You know, it's not just about anecdotal evidence. Risk ultimately comes down to how people behave. When you get ex-military, ex-policemen, whilst they do a great job in the security game, they tend to sort of miss that element of what risk really means and that public aspect of it.
What are the risks that we need to be considering? What are we looking at for the future?
The biggest issue I see in the consultancy space and providing advisory services is that it's reactive most of the time. An incident has occurred, or you believe an incident may occur. It's more about being predictive. Now, I believe the future of security consulting in particular and clients utilising data. So big data is something that is a challenge for everybody. Systems are no longer going to be a depository of just prescribed events that happened in the past. All right? I think the industry is going to get a lot smarter in the way that they use their data and be able to become a lot more predictive. This is not new. Big data is used everywhere. We heard earlier on from other people how they share information and how the FBI in America and New South Wales Police are actually starting to collate data to be able to identify what they identify. But what organisations need to understand, and what we do is when we go into organisations talk about their security predictive nature, is they have a massive amount of data that they can actually mine and become predictive about what they do with their security. That's where I think it's leading. We typically see machine-to-machine configurations when it comes to technology, so this system talks to this system. But what we're trying to push in the way we approach consultancy and advisory services is bringing machine learning into the realm of things, because the amount of data that organisations have and that can match to other departments within government, federal, state, local, within other organisations is immense. And is a powerful tool, and it's a tool that is going to drive the market into the future. And that's the advisory sort of services we're looking at providing and what we've learned from the industry and where it's heading. It drives operational efficiencies because it gives you the right information at the right time to the right people. It drives cost assurances and capital investment. It allows organisations to be able to spread the word with their contemporaries and other people and then start sharing data between the two. And we have it there, the core's already there.
What's a typical day at work for you? How do you interact with your customers?
Educating the clients about forward thinking, about where the industry is heading, the challenges of being able to predictively identify where their next risk is going to occur. We do a lot with financial institutions as an example where they spend a considerable amount of time building databases and CSV files. What we try and do is educate our clients on a day-to-day basis on how to use that to its fullest potential. Stakeholder management is a very big key of what my day-to-day is. So is meeting the expectations of our clients with the projects we're working on, as well as being able to introduce our clients to other clients. So there's an element of socialising that happens on a day-to-day basis as a director.
We talked earlier on about the image of the industry and professionalism of the industry. How have you seen that change over the years, and where do you think it needs to further change?
Just by sitting in this room, and as an example, I find that the professionalism is exquisite. I mean, the actual commentary and communication that's been put forward has been absolutely fantastic, and it's just solidified my view of security at a certain level, at a quite high level. What I am finding, although, is that the industry seems to be bastardised a little bit. And what I mean by that is, whilst we've got licensing for advisory services and providing security, there's a lot of there's a cottage industry building behind us, which worries me a little bit. And when it comes all the way from consultancy services and practices, professional services, down to integrators and distributors of product. You know, so. I find that quite disturbing, only because you're continuously bombarded with the next best thing that a manufacturer or someone who's associated with a product pushing onto what you're trying to do as a security person. I think the policy, which I'm glad to hear today, it should be driven from the top down to improve the professionalism and everything else that's been spoken about. You know, courses. Being able to provide the baseline for people to thrive, succession planning, treat it as a business, to understand the business. So I think that's a great thing. I think that'll just lift it up.
What can be done to further that, though? As an industry, what can the industry do?
The industry needs to be taken a little bit more seriously. I think it's in a commercial aspect, not in a government aspect. In a commercial aspect, it's treated as a poor cousin. It's a cost. It's continuously a cost. I think the industry needs to step outside of its comfort zone and think outside the square and see how it can bring value to what they actually do as a security service. We'll have the ability to be able to talk to the higher levels of industry and commercial businesses so that they can understand that it's not just a cost centre. It could actually become a tool that can be effectively managed. Once we get a grasp of that and start thinking outside the square, I think the professionalism and the growth of the industry will occur organically.
We run a dinner every year for the Australian Security Medals Foundation. What I enjoy about that dinner is when people come away from it who are not from security, they're from government or they're from business or whatever, and they come away and they say, I did not realise security is like that. Do you think we could be doing more about letting people know what security is really about?
Yes, we could. I think we need to spunk it up a little bit. I think there's a potential that it may become mundane, it may become obsolete in some people's eyes, because you've got other sort of businesses ankle tapping at us quite aggressively. And what I mean by that is, you know, you've got the IT realm trying to think that they can be all to everybody. You've got the audiovisual organisations starting to come up and try to trump us. I think if we start using the tools that other organisations such as Seek or Microsoft use at their fingertips, it'll attract a certain type of person that makes it, that they believe that they can grow in the industry and they believe that the industry is actually moving. I work with a lot of businesses where I see they become a bit stale in respects to the security flavour, and they don't use tools such as agility-based working where they can have people coming in and out and be flexible, and it's quite mundane and it's quite structured. I think if we need to have an element of structure, don't get me wrong, you know, but if we make it a little bit spunkier, I think that will attract a lot more people and will be known as an industry that is changing.
Is part of the problem there its self-image?
Potentially. If we don't start attracting the younger generation, I think eventually the old heads will sort of just disappear, and it'll just fall under another cost centre within an organisation. Just the relevance of what we do needs to be celebrated, and that's business-wide. That's security-wide, because the effort that goes into what we do is pretty much incognito. It's undercover, and it needs to be exposed. It needs to be put out there in the market. It needs to have people, which we've heard today, which are quite articulate and eloquent in how they spoke. It needs to bubble to the surface, because it's very reactive. The industry is very, very reactive, and it needs to become proactive, because it's there. The heads are there, the smarts are there. We think completely different to a lot of other verticals. You know, our minds are wired completely differently, so we need to celebrate it.
On that point about, I guess, the industry self-image and where we're heading and how we get there by celebrating what we do you think part of the issue is, as you sort of touched on, one, lack of young blood in a lot of areas of the industry, but also this top secret sort of conservative image that we project business-wide and industry-wide, which causes people to shut down and not want to have these conversations. We want to be very secretive about what we do. We want to keep it sort of closed off ostensively to protect ourselves from telling the bad guys what we're doing and how we're doing it, when in fact would we not be better off going a more transparent route where we actually go into reasonable detail about what we do and how we do it, but not obviously the specifics of this particular organisation or how these systems wire together, but being very public focused and oriented and saying, these are the issues that we're dealing with, this is how we're going about it, and this is how we're progressing into the future. This
sort of scenario, when the security industry does do a good job, we just like to pat ourselves on the back and say, good job, and an example of that is thwarting potential terrorist activity, where it gets a 30-second mention on the news for a day, or it gets a bit of a write-up in the paper. However, when a terrorist event does occur, it gets weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of publicity. I think it needs to, that's how I think we can celebrate what we do, instead of just saying, yeah, good job, so-and-so, great stuff, off you go. How much is it going to cost me for the next one? That sort of that mentality. We need to sing and dance about those things, Transparency, to a point, transparency is critical. We do need to have some secrets about what we do, but celebrate the outcomes. That's more about it. Celebrate what we do as an outcome rather than hide everything.
Mario, you mentioned before about a consultant needs to keep ahead of technology, keep ahead of trends and that sort of stuff, because that's really your raison d'etre. That's the advantage you've got over in-house managers, for instance. So how do you keep ahead of those trends, other than attending conferences and reading magazines? I mean, what else does a consultant do and have to do to stay ahead of the trends?
The security industry is small. It's a small micro industry in respects to what other technologies out in the world. And it's driven by manufacturers rather than top down of what we actually want. They come along and they'll say, we're going to give you a box and it's going to be able to connect to whatever, right? The IT industry, the audiovisual industry, has got that many more tools that is at the disposal of our industry that will far exceed where we are today. How we do it is it's a continuous educational exercise. Part of our mantra within our organisation, I know how other consultancy organisations, is to spend 4 hours a week on their education. It's to keep up to breast with what's going on in the world through multimedia, through open source, through collection of data. I mean, I alluded to big data earlier on. To see what's happening in the world of IT that's going to impact on industry in a positive way. We spread our wings, so we don't just look at what's there today in that field. We keep abreast of everything, and that also comes with building your organisation with people who have the will, the engineering will, and the expertise to go and find it.
Mine was going to follow on for that and ask you to give up yet another trade secret, Mario, and that's information. Knowledge about it out there, but current information about what's happening in that particular scene. We've heard a few examples of where government is operating directly with industry. You're kind of not quite directly industry. You're kind of. Can you get involved in that information sharing exchange, and if so, how do you do it?
Information is key. It's power. Data mining and collection of data has been the big boys' business for a long time. It's been something that people spend millions and millions of dollars of getting data scientists together to build algorithms, to mine data. We have disparate databases all across the board. But what's happened in the last 18 months to 2 years has been a revolution in what we call machine learning, where there's organisations there now that don't care what your database looks like, really don't care how disparate it is, whether it's structured or whether it's unstructured, they don't care. They sit across the top and they create quite basic SQL language so that anybody can actually mine. What we're doing as an organisation, IPP, is taking our clients on a journey to be able to interlink and interconnect with these other organisations, whether it be government or private, or just public ones, where we're able to go in and link into their databases through these engines that are open source, and link in whatever we want to link into, of course with the rights and of course with privacy in mind, but come out with an outcome. Come out with an outcome that's not only reactive, yes we know, but predictive, yes this is where we can go. So it's key. It's where the future of our industry, I believe, will be going. That's where the smarts of our industry will be taking it. And sharing of information and sharing it in an effective way at a cost-effective rate is there today. It's happening now. It's the new door.